helplessness is your best friend, savage.
I'd like to point out two things before I get this video started. One, I'd like to apologise in advance before for the poor quality of the both video and audio. I couldn't use my general way that I usually do it by using YouTube and ripping it straight from YouTube. I had to use my Cam Studio. And two,
I just had sex, and it felt so good.
What does this have to do with the video? Absolutely fucking nothing.
Well now, after all the waiting, all the consternation, all the fighting and virtual bloodshed, the first episode of Feminist Frequency, aka Sarkeesian's Tropes vs. Women Video Games, has finally been released. March the 7th of this year, one day prior to International Women's Day. I watched it, and then I watched all the miscreants and trolls crawl out and vomit a thick slime of bile all over themselves.
It is probably the key juxtaposition of my biggest complaint with this video is that one, everyone who disagrees with it is both doing it because they're sexist and two, they're male, which I know plenty of women who have contacted me on my videos about Anita Sarkeesian telling me that they're male and they don't agree with Anita Sarkeesian at all.
All hoping that they could get at least some of it to stick to a woman they decided they hated a long time ago.
Just for the record, I never liked Anita Sarkeesian, even before she did a kickstart on her tropes versus women in video games. Just for me, that is the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, okay, more like a 2-ton weight that broke the camel's back, but that's beside the point anyway.
Well, I've got something to say to those guys, and that something is fuck.
This isn't funny!
I'm the Game Over Thinker, and this is Overbites. Okay, so I watched the first episode of Tropes vs. Women in Video Games, which was titled The Damsel in Distress and covered exactly that.
I'm fairly certain the poetic irony of this video alone escapes him at this precise moment, because he is defending a woman who's made quite literally herself a internet damsel, and he has to come rescuing her from the internet trolls, which, face it, Anita Sarkeesian should, by that definition, tell you not to do this, because she finds that offensive and oppressive to her.
Laying out in somewhat dry academic terms exactly what the trope in question referred to in culture and offering up an exhaustively comprehensive list of characters in video games who were examples of such, devoting the majority of this installment to games and characters from the early golden age of consoles and arcades. My verdict? That was it? Oh, I don't mean the episode. The episode is actually pretty damn good. Insightful, well-researched,
Well researched. We're talking about the same video where she says something along the lines of,
the belief that women are somehow a naturally weaker gender is a deeply ingrained socially constructed myth, which of course is completely false.
Which is still one of the most insanely idiotic things that she has ever said in the history of mankind. But anyway, that's beside the point. As for insightful, all she did was to point out the blatantly fucking obvious. If she needed, what, $6,000 or in total 1,660 grand just to point out the blatantly obviously, I hope that you didn't need your money, because you might as well just, if you did donate to her, I hope that you could have just went outside and just set the money on fire and you still would have gotten better use out of it.
Exceptionally well produced with a solid execution. If I had one major criticism to offer, it's that the overall presentation is a little dry, but I get more or less why that is. This isn't a YouTube rant or a typical gamer show, it's an academic presentation. Something designed more ideally for a classroom or seminar setting that's looking to educate the viewer and or clarify the position of the speaker than to entertain or sneak relevant commentary in under the guise of humor.
That isn't academia. For it to class as academia, Anita Sarkeesian would either have to have done studies herself, I don't know, i.e. sit down, 100 people, make them play a video game for X number of times, and then determine their something like that, or cite other studies that done the same thing, which she doesn't. All she does is blatantly tell her opinion, which is my biggest problem with Anita Sarkeesian videos. All her videos are her opinion. not solid facts. And opinions can be debated, which she doesn't allow them. All she did was say that she was being picked on the internet, so people would give her more money than she actually strictly needs.
And while that means it's not as fun as a lot of gaming-related videos, well, it's not like the web series about video games genre is exactly hurting her. And if you were looking for one more gaming show to watch that combines biting commentary with slapstick humor, wacky sidekicks, robots, ninjas, and all other such things, well, I can think of at least one. Ha ha! Self-promotion.
This isn't funny!
No, when I say that was it, I'm talking about the controversy. After all the wailing and gnashing of teeth coming out of everybody from generic forum trolls to so-called men's rights activists, after all the dubious takedown videos and beat-up Anita Flash games, after all that anger, hate, and fear about what this awful woman was doing and the terrible things she was going to say against our precious electronic playthings.
A big wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated for all your sacrifices, you can climb on up and nail yourself to it.
Really, internet tough guys? This was it? This is what you were afraid of?
I'm not afraid of her. I just don't like her. She's boring. She points out the blatantly obvious and then she acts like she's smarter than everybody else, which she blatantly fucking isn't. And honestly, nobody has answered me this question. Why does she need enough money to buy a goddamn fucking house with?
This is the horrifying she-beast, the devil woman from hell who'd come to steal your manhood away? This is what you were worried about? This is what you were mounting up and drawing swords to go do battle with?
You're in more dire need of a blowjob than any white man in history.
Yeah, really? Your queen of darkness wears flannel and hoop earrings? Ooh, scary. I can totally see why this was worth overreacting to.
This is my big complaint against this. He's basically painting everybody with a white brush. Everybody who disagrees with Anita Sarkeesian is somehow an internet troll or doing so out of some deep-seated misogyny or sexism. Honestly, I think you can disagree with Anita Sarkeesian as long as... And face it, I've disagreed with her. I posted multiple videos. I've never once insulted her through her gender. I've said that she was full of shit and insulted her, and I think I even once jokingly shot her in one of my videos, but that's beside the point. I don't do it because she's a feminist or she's a woman. I do it because I think she's full of shit. And being full of shit is transcendental, has nothing to do with gender or that. And trust me, people on the internet think I'm full of shit. I don't give a fuck. I don't have to socialize with those people anyway.
You fucking cowards. It's actually a little surprising that the end result is so mild, non-threatening, non-controversial. Internet gamer culture worked itself into a lather about the attack on video games that this was going to be, and instead it's just a very calm, methodical examination of cliches that, frankly, we tend to roll our eyes at just as much as she does. Because when we say Princess Peach has been kidnapped too many damn times, it's a funny internet meme. But if a feminist says it, she's coming to take your balls away.
I think somebody took your balls away a long time ago, I guarantee you that.
In this respect, I think the takeaway is that a lot of people were so wrapped up in a default defensive stance about the whole thing that they lost sight of what Sarkeesian's feminist frequency videos had largely always been and what the Tropes vs. Women project was very clearly going to be. Feminism and gender studies essays presented in a fairly broad, wide audience fashion, using games and game characters as a cultural reference point. People got so wrapped up in the supposed horror of feminism being used to criticize video games, when in reality all this series seems to be trying to do is use video games to explore and explain feminist theories about popular culture.
Feminism is about as much use as a cock-flavored lollipop.
Video games as a vehicle for exploring larger issues? Why didn't I think of that? In fact, there's almost zero criticism in the first episode, other than acknowledging things like the repetition of themes and overused character types that, frankly, the gaming community was complaining about long before Anita Sarkeesian ever showed up. There's really not even anything for me to even try arguing with her about.
You, sir, are an idiot.
Most of the episode is just a succession of undeniable facts. A staggering number of the Golden Age games that make up the foundation of the medium used kidnapped women as a plot device. Fact. For a long time, said kidnapped women made up the bulk of female characters in the medium. Fact.
She makes numerous errors in the video. She says that Princess Peach has never been playable, which I can immediately think of Mario RPG, Paper Mario, and that Mario RPG. And also, she says that they accidentally threw in Princess Peach into Mario 2, which she blatantly blatantly fucking didn't. How do you accidentally create or put in a female character? Anyway, if you genuinely want to know my actual thoughts on her and all the errors she makes in it, go watch the video on her that I made, the commentary on the Damsel in Distress video. There will be a link in the description if you want to watch it, if you haven't already.
And while she doesn't come right out and say so, if her point is that these two facts are part of why so much retrograde sexism seems built into the DNA of the modern games industry and its fan base, that would be kind of hard for me to argue against.
Fuck you! Yeah, that's my message to you. Fuck you and kiss my ass.
I mean, guys, the closest she gets to angry is when she calls the opening sequence of Double Dragon regressive crap. And guys, I love Double Dragon, but one of the reasons I love Double Dragon is that Double Dragon aspires to be regressive crap. I mean, Double Dragon tries its ass off to be this sleazy, cheesy, grindhousey 1980s mashup of, like, the Warriors and Fist of the North Star. Double Dragon wants to be regressive crap. I mean, guys, I was looking for stuff to come out against. It would make this a more interesting response.
You, sir, are an idiot.
But the whole presentation is so damn harmless. The exact opposite of the supposed radical feminist everyone was so apoplectic about. I thought I saw something coming when she started in about the current trend of reviving nostalgic retro games that so often included this potentially problematic content, figuring that maybe she was going to opine that said retro games should either be restricted or altered to reflect a more modern sensibility re women. That would be approaching a radical feminist opinion, and one I disagree with, but that's not what she said. Instead, it's only brought up as a more direct example of why this stuff is still worth talking about.
Yeah, again, why does she need $156,000 just to talk about this? She has no interest in helping anybody other than herself. If she wants to just lead by... Why didn't she lead by example and go and create her own video game with her own goddamn fucking standards, rather than sitting home and complaining like some kind of little girl who had both her legs broken?
Although some of it speaks for itself. I'd totally forgotten about this UK-only ad for the Ocarina of Time until she played a clip of it. That's fucked up, right? I mean, come on, it's not like this is a Duke Nukem game. This is Zelda, a game that Nintendo should have known had a huge female fan base, even back then. I mean, she opens the show with the infamous story of how Rare's original dinosaur planet, with Crystal as the heroic lead, was ultimately transformed into a Star Fox adjunct with Crystal as an abductee in a skimpier outfit under the direction of Nintendo and Shigeru Miyamoto.
I think I said something along the lines of this in my original Anita Sarkeesian Damsel in Distress video, that they never got rid of or changed Crystal into any big changes. All they did was change Saber into Star Fox and change the whole thing just to leech off the previous IP, not to somehow oppress women all over the place. Because trust me, if you're being oppressed by video games, you really are probably fucking retarded.
And then soon segues back into Miyamoto as the progenitor of the Golden Age's original trio of kidnapped girlfriends, and you're thinking, oh boy, here it comes, she's gonna go for blood and accuse the almost universally beloved god figure of game designer of being some kind of misogynist. But she doesn't.
No, but she does heavily imply it though, but it does beg the question, why didn't she just come out and say, I think Shigeru Miyamoto is sexist? I would have more respect for it if she just said that than just tiptoeing around the subject, like she did with her Sucker Punch video, where she accused the director of that of leeching off the gains of feminism, which is kind of ironic considering Anita Sarkeesian is doing the exact same thing here.
In fact, she doesn't offer an opinion of Miyamoto at all, other than that she liked playing his games as a kid. Again, it's all just facts. He did create these characters, they did popularize this trope in the medium.
And yet again, why does she need the money to point out the blatant fucking obvious?
Man, who would have ever thought that being a woman could be so profitable?
Now let's be clear here. Most gamers know that there's never really even been a hint of any kind of sexism coming out of Shigeru Miyamoto. But if you wanted to extrapolate and make a stab-in-the-dark accusation, using that Dinosaur Planet production story would be one way to do it, and it wouldn't sound like that much of a reach to people who weren't in the know. So the fact that she doesn't go there, the fact that she emphatically avoids going there, honestly reads as admirable restraint to me. In fact, the whole piece is so restrained, it feels like that should be a criticism in and of itself. For all the build-up, one could definitely call at least this first episode basic and even boilerplate. Feminism 101 for gamers. It's tempting to ask, even if this is the introductory episode, did it need to be this basic and introductory? To feel this much like a first-year college course? Then you read the comments being made about the video, and you realize that college level is probably an optimistic appraisal of the audience.
Well, that would be very difficult for you to do, considering Anita Sarkeesian has actually removed comments from the said video, so I'm not sure what where you're reading it from. And heck, even most of the videos that I've watched about her have been somewhat restrained mostly, like The Amazing Atheist and Thunderfoot's video, which I think all they ever say is just point out where Anita Sarkeesian is going wrong. If you want to say they're being sexist, I'd like to point out they don't insult her other than saying that she's an idiot. Heck, the worst I ever get is I think I call her a fucking retard and saying that she's talking out of her ass.
Remember how I pointed out that she goes out of her way not to accuse, say, Miyamoto or his characters or anyone else's characters of being misogynist or sexist to themselves? Well, to read a lot of the responses, people seem sure that she somehow attacked Miyamoto and the games and us for playing them anyway, even though there's nothing like that in the episode. How did that happen? Yeah, it's almost like people decided she was going to be attacking everything the minute she declared herself to be a feminist. Funny how that works. And that's why I'd have to say that the Feminism 101 approach to this topic probably is, unfortunately, necessary.
Well, first of all, that's one huge stretch to say that everybody immediately is disagreeing with her just because they're all male. I've had basic contact with people on the internet, or women on the internet, saying that Anita Sarkeesian is so full of shit that she's more like a septic tank. But anyway, that's a bit beside the point. Now more than ever even. See, for a lot of Generation X and Y gamers, aka people born after the late 70s or so, feminism as a concept, philosophy, or movement can sometimes seem like an abstract thing. Most of the major public take-to-the-streets battles that feminism fought for, like women's suffrage, overhauling domestic abuse laws... Domestic abuse has always been illegal, you fucking idiot.
Birth control, and even Roe v. Wade, had gone down before we were either born or cognizant of our surroundings. Thusly, it was possible and in fact pretty easy to grow up and, unless you had an actively feminist family member or opted to learn about it in school, only ever really hear of feminists as mythological boogeymen conjured by Neanderthal talk show hosts or straw woman caricatures on TV.
I'd like to appreciate the irony that Anita Sarkeesian has actually complained about Marcy Darcy from Married with Children. Mainly because I know I actually did a commentary on that video a long time ago.
Don't give me any shit, guys. I loved Married with Children. So it's not exactly surprising that so many people hear the word feminist and instead of thinking... their first reaction is instead, oh my god! She's coming! She's coming to destroy our man things!
Personally, when I think of feminism, I honestly always think of Andrea Dawkins or Gail Dines or other people like that who constantly complain about pornography and how that's oppressive to women and how we need to get rid of the porn industry and that will somehow lead to some true golden age in feminism in the whole world because of cupcakes. Actually, why would this banning pornography gonna help women everywhere? It's something that I really don't understand.
No, not that man thing. Different kind of man thing. So, in the end, after all the shouting, the inexplicable, most controversial gaming series ever appears to be just a well-mounted academic web show that appears off to a solid start. There's always the possibility that it's going to tackle something more incendiary in future installments, but thus far, if you showed this to someone and then told them about all the crap that was lobbed at it preemptively, I imagine they'd be completely baffled as to what everyone was so hot and bothered about. Even if I don't agree with everything or even anything she ultimately has to say, another voice trying to bring some maturity and nuance to the realm of gaming discussion is always welcome.
Yes, okay, discussing video games is okay to a point, but if Ania Sarkeesian generally wants to make an impact, why didn't she make her own video game character? She had enough money to, because, trust me, if you gave me $156,000, or I think that would be £145 if I'm right, I would probably use it to buy a house, then probably help fund some video games myself, if I generally wanted to make a difference. Because sitting at home and complaining about things on the internet is okay if you want to get it off your chest, but if you generally do want to make a difference, go and make them your fucking self. Have I got that clear to everybody watching this?
Because here's the thing, guys. Nothing bad can come from simply having things talked about. Like she says in the episode, thinking critical about the stuff you like doesn't mean you're not allowed to still like it. This is not going to destroy this or that thing about gaming. Although, to be fair, folks, if there are things in the world of video games that will be destroyed simply by having a mature, thoughtful, critical conversation about them, then they probably ought to be destroyed. I'm the Game Over Thinker, and you've been watching Overbites.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.